The courtroom was silent. Every seat was filled, every camera fixed, every heart pounding as the verdict was about to be read. Caylee Anthony sat motionless, her face unreadable. The nation was watching. Some expected tears. Others expected handcuffs. What they got instead sent shockwaves across America. Not guilty. The words echoed in disbelief. Gasps filled the room. Families clutched each other. Reporters scrambled, and millions watching at home shouted in outrage. Caylee Anthony, the young mother accused of murdering her own daughter Caylee, was walking free. But how did we get here? How did a smiling 22-year-old from Florida become the center of the most infamous trial in modern history? To answer that, we have to rewind Orlando, Florida, summer of 2008. 2-year-old Caylee Anthony was a bubbly, wide-eyed toddler, full of life. Her grandparents adored her, especially her grandmother, Caylee Anthony, who often helped raise her. But Caylee's young mother, Casey, was already a source of tension in the family. On the surface, Casey seemed like a fun, carefree girl who loved to party. But behind closed doors, her life was full of lies, secrets, and instability. It began when Caylee Anthony noticed something strange. She hadn't seen her granddaughter in weeks. Casey always had excuses. Caylee was with a babysitter with a friend at the beach. But the excuses stretched longer and longer until Cindy finally snapped. On July 15, 2008, she called 911. "My daughter has been missing for a month," Cindy told the operator, her voice frantic. Her mother finally admitted she hasn't seen her. "Please, something's wrong. It smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car." That one call changed everything. When police arrived, they immediately sensed the problem wasn't just a missing child. It was something darker. Caylee Anthony spun wild stories. She claimed Caylee had been kidnapped by a babysitter named Zanny. She insisted she was too scared to call police. But investigators quickly discovered the babysitter didn't exist. And that was only the beginning. They towed Casey's white Pontiac Sunfire and opened the trunk. The odor hit them immediately. One officer later described it as unmistakable. The smell of human decomposition. Inside they found a trash bag, air fresheners, and suspicious stains. Forensic experts tested the carpet fibers and found traces of chloroform, a chemical that can be used to knock someone unconscious. Later, a hair strand consistent with Caylee's was discovered, showing signs of decomposition. But where was Caylee? For months, the search consumed Florida. Volunteers scoured fields, rivers, and swamps. Posters of the smiling toddler lined every street corner. Casey, meanwhile, wasn't searching. She was photographed out at clubs, competing in a hot body contest, smiling, drinking, living as though nothing had happened. Her friends later testified that Casey never seemed worried. To them, it looked like she was relieved Caylee was gone. Then in December 2008, the mystery turned to horror. The utility workers stumbled across a small, wooded area less than a mile from the Anthony home. Inside a trash bag was a tiny skull. Duct tape clung to the remains. The search was over. Caylee was dead. The discovery shattered the community. Caylee's innocence, her short life, became a symbol of lost childhood. And the spotlight turned to Caylee Anthony. Prosecutors charged her with first-degree murder. If convicted, she faced the death penalty. The trial began in May 2011, and it was a media circus. Crowds lined up outside every morning, desperate to get a seat. News anchors broadcast live updates by the minute. The public had already made up its mind. To them, Caylee Anthony was guilty. But inside the courtroom, the battle was just beginning. The prosecution laid out a damning case. They said Caylee killed her daughter to live the carefree party life she wanted. They pointed to her lies, the fake nanny, the non-existent job at Universal Studios, the endless fabrications. They showed jurors the photos of her dancing in a club while Caylee was missing. They presented the forensics, the chloroform in the trunk, the duct tape found with Caylee's remains, the suspicious searches on Casey's home computer for chloroform and neck breaking. Piece by piece, they built the image of a young mother who saw her daughter not as a gift, but as a burden. But then came the defense, and their strategy shocked everyone. Casey's attorney, Jose Baez, told jurors that Caylee's death wasn't murder. It was a tragic accident. He claimed Caylee drowned in the family's swimming pool, and that Casey's father, George Anthony, helped cover it up. Then Baez went further. He accused George of sexually abusing Caylee as a child, suggesting it explained her habit of lying. George Anthony denied it, and no evidence supported it, but the claims rattled the courtroom, and that's where the trial took its strangest turn. The prosecution had evidence, but it was circumstantial. No one saw Casey hurt Caylee. No one could prove how the little girl died. The defense hammered that point again and again. If the state can't even tell you how she died, Baez argued, how can they prove murder? The jury listened. For 6 weeks they heard experts, friends, family, and investigators. They saw the photos. They watched the videos. They studied the computer searches. But in the end, the case came down to one question. Was this murder or an accident? On July 5, 2011, the jury returned. The world held its breath, not guilty of murder, not guilty of manslaughter, not guilty of child abuse. The only charge that stuck was lying to law enforcement. Caylee Anthony walked out of the courthouse a free woman. The reaction was explosive. Crowds outside the courthouse screamed in anger. Commentators called it the trial of the century and one of the greatest failures of the justice system. Nancy Grace, a TV legal analyst, summed it up. The devil is dancing tonight. Inside the courtroom, Casey cried tears of relief. Her parents sat stone-faced, broken, and across America, families hugged their children tighter, wondering how a mother accused of such a crime could walk away. In the years since, Caylee Anthony has lived in hiding, occasionally surfacing in interviews where she insists she doesn't know what happened to her daughter. But the public has never forgiven. To many, she will always be the mother who got away with murder. And so, the Caylee Anthony case remains one of the most divisive legal stories in modern history. Was Caylee's death a tragic accident twisted into a circus by prosecutors? Or was it cold-blooded murder that slipped through the cracks of reasonable doubt? What do you think? Did the jury get it right, or did the system fail Caylee Anthony? Because at the heart of this case is a haunting truth. A little girl is gone, a family is shattered, and the answers to how and why remain buried beneath lies, mystery, and a verdict that stunned the world.